Stephanie Miller is joined by her guests. The two talk the latest in politics and ask a simple question. Is Trump above the law?
You don't want to diagnose him, but I think if you look at the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, he fits every single one of them. It's like the criteria were made to describe him. And I think what we saw with this tweet yesterday is that last final collapse of Donald Trump's mental state. To think that is crazy and to try to sell it to people is just as crazy. He's done. His brain is fried.
Next to his spray tan, I would agree. And the spray tan proves the cover-up is worse than the crime. You know, it's so bad, they're admitting that his health is bad.
Yeah.
That's how scared they are. And his health is, I don't want to alarm you folks and the nice people in your audience, Stephanie, the very sexually attractive people who make up your base. He's not a well man. You know this. The doctor checks his cholesterol with a dipstick. Okay, he's not healthy.
Right.
His blood type is ranch. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
He thought BMI stood for Big Mac intake. He's not a healthy man. His arteries look like they've been deep fried, Steffi. I'm worried about him. His body is 40% Crisco, okay? He's the president. I just care. His ankles look like he's smuggling ham hocks. You monsters, let's have some compassion for the poor guy.
All right. Wow, you know what? In other hip-hop news, you know I like starting sentences like that.
Yes.
Well, John Fugelsang is a former VJ. I did not know this fun fact. You said in a resurfaced interview from nearly a decade ago, rapper Uncle Luke of 2 Live Crew says he fled a Trump party in Palm Beach in the early 90s after seeing what appeared to be underage girls at a sex and drug-fueled event.
Wait a minute, isn't he...
The guy from 2 Live Crew was like, this is too skeevy for me.
Yeah, the guy who's saying, he's so horny?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
This was too horny for him. This was, in fact...
Too horny.
Trump's too nasty for that guy.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. God. Listen, I mean, all we're doing is accusing Trump of being what he's always been. Yeah. And now the cult has got a dramatic choice. Are they going to stay and play dumb because fascism smells good? Or are they going to realize that this guy's been treating them like one of his wives? To me, the real story here, beyond the great Republican pedo protection racket, is the fact that I've started to realize maybe we've been asking the wrong questions, guys. We keep saying, when's Trump's base going to break up with him? We keep talking about MAGA and the people below him. I've started to think the real thing we got to talk about is when Trump's breaking up with the people above him, the oligarchs, the billionaires, the people he's never been one of. He's their greeter, right? He's the guy who polishes their velvet rope and says, no poor people past this point. Well, guess what just happened in the last 2 weeks? They got their Mount Doom of evil budgets, the largest transfer of wealth from the 99% to the 1% in the history of this country, and then they got their crypto bill. So now they have all their corruption, all their deregulation, their crypto loopholes, and suddenly, as soon as the ink was dry, the Epstein files exploded.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think the people who own this country have gotten all they want out of this lecherous puppet, and they're done with him.
Yes.
They're pressing the delete button like he's a Bond villain, and they're getting rid of Trump.
So I found this fascinating. You said last night on SiriusXM we had a woman caller from Kentucky claim Trump was the greatest POTUS ever. It took less than 90 seconds of polite questions for her to call Obama the N-word. And that's MAGA. Without racism, Trump would just be another rich civilian raping underage girls with Epstein.
I apologize to everybody who was listening to our show. I was on with Keith Price, who joins me every Tuesday, and he's, you know, the most black gay person in the world, and this woman just didn't care, and I'm not surprised. It's really sad, but they're scared, they're angry. They know in 20 years that white people are going to be a minority in this country, and that's driving all of this.
Yeah, well, that's why Obama's the ultimate red meat, you know, to throw out to his base, right? He's, ironically, Trump's white whale. But so can we talk about heroes of democracy, which includes you, includes our friend Stephen Colbert, includes South Park.
South Park this week. Wow. Have you seen it, Steffi?
But this is the power of what you do every day, John. It's the power of satire. It is a punch in the fascist's nose. It is a to a dictator.
Oh, listen, first off, yes, I agree. That episode the other night, they kicked fascism in the taint in that episode. Did you see it, Stephanie? Have you seen the South Park?
I've watched clips. I want to see the whole thing
today.
Listen, I've watched most of it.
Stop watching the clips online, everybody, and watch the entire 22 minutes straight through.
Yeah.
It is the most important 22. I'm sorry, Andor season 2, but this is the most politically important TV of the entire year.
Yeah.
In this, all these cowards and compromises and capitulating weasels. South Park has more integrity than Columbia University and CBS and ABC and Amazon.
Yes.
It was the best TV of the year, and it's what satire is supposed to do: speak truth to power and mock the emperor's micro penis.
And it's what Colbert is doing every night. It's what Jon Stewart did. It is a masterclass.
Oh, but no one's done this before. They got their $1.5 billion on Monday, and then they attacked the Paramount merger on Wednesday.
I know. I love the White House said the president is seething over this childish attack by South Park. That only makes it even better.
If he says anything, it draws more attention. If he sues them, it proves them right.
Yeah, and I love what they said. The left's hypocrisy truly has no end. For years, they come after South Park for what they labeled as offensive content, but suddenly they're praising the show.
When has the left come after South Park for offensive content?
I know.
That's the best they can do because South Park, it doesn't have an ideology, and because South Park does a lot of politically incorrect and often offensive things. And this one, half of it, a lot of liberals are complaining because it has the other F word and it has the R word.
Oh, it has the F word for gay men a lot.
Like our show.
But the whole point is that the MAGA guys feel like, oh, Donald Trump, this is freedom. I get to say those 2 words again. It says them to make fun of people who say them.
Right. What South Park hates is hypocrisy. Yeah. They don't care about either party. They hate hypocrisy.
And we've said that about our show for 25 years now, right? It's like we're too liberal for conservatives and too politically incorrect for liberals, but which is kind of what South Park is. But so the White House said, just like the creators of South Park, the left has no authentic or original content. The show hasn't been relevant for over 20 years and is hanging by a thread. John, from your years in this business, that's exactly why companies pay someone $1.5 billion.
It's so irrelevant. The White House is putting out a statement about it because it's so irrelevant.
Right.
And again, that's Trump hiding behind a spokesperson. He's in a corner on this one. He can't talk about it in public because that'll get more eyeballs on it. Yeah. And y'all have to see it. His penis appears 5 times in the episode.
As a character, too.
It's beautiful. Yes. It's jazz.
It's hard to spot, but it's in there.
And the monologue Jesus gives on the mound is actually the most incredible part of it. The most shocking, more shocking than the ending that we've all seen, the AI animation. You've got it. Jesus' monologue is crazy.
I thought of you, but can I just say, this FCC chair, ironically, I can't call him a bag of because then I'll lose my FCC license. But this is why it's so important when they get a scalp like Colbert that Matt and Trey, take up the baton and go, we got your back. Yeah. Because this
it didn't hurt Paramount's merger, by the way. Nope. It did not hurt the merger the next morning.
Yeah, the merger went through. Anyway, but listen.
So be brave, people.
This is the FCC chair on Fox News, real quick.
Did President Trump have anything to do with the cancellation of Stephen Colbert's show?
Well, here's what's important to keep in mind is a broader dynamic. When President Trump ran for election, he ran right at these legacy broadcast media outfits and the New York and Hollywood elites that are behind it, and he smashed the facade that these are gatekeepers that can control what Americans think and what Americans can say. And once you do that, you've exposed the business model of a lot of these outfits as being nothing more than a partisan circus.
If they get their way, there's going to be nothing but like right-wing, propaganda and wrestling on TV, right?
His military is decimated. His army is decimated. And they are not going to go charging into NATO territory to expect to win.
Hi, welcome to Superpowers, the future of global security here on Times Radio. I'm James Heapy, and this week I am joined by General Philip Breedlove. General Philip is a former US Air Force general officer, but at the end of his career, he was also the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, which is the senior military appointment within NATO, making him the commander of all Allied forces in the European theatre. General Breedlove, welcome. If I may, can I just start by getting you to cast your Sacker eye over your country's policy to Europe and NATO? I think probably best summed up as tough love. Many would say long overdue, but with it is the threat of US disengagement from the theatre that you commanded and know so well. What's your take on it all?
Well, first of all, James, thanks for having me aboard, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. So I think that what we need to remember before we talk, just for a minute, remember how successful this alliance has been over the past 75 years. Probably the most successful military alliance in the history of the world. And yes, we had a few bumps in the road in Yugoslavia and Kosovo, but what we have managed to do over the past 75 years is keep world peace. We had had 2 world wars before the formation of this alliance. And in the main, it has done magnificently. And I think that what we also need to understand is something I've talked about and written about, which I believe this alliance is more important in the next 75 years than it was in the last 75 years. Our enemies are more indistinct. Our enemies fight us below the line. Some people call it hybrid war. Some people call it gray zone war. I like to just call it war below the lines, because we are definitely fighting, but we're just not doing it with bombs and missiles yet. And so we need an alliance that has a backbone and has a moral compass to help guide us the next 75 years. So where are we find ourselves now? I like to remind people that we have an administration now that we had before. If you remember, we had an administration with a policy some time ago, and that policy was pretty rough. We used to talk then about mean tweets and so forth. And during that administration, I like to point people to facts, because facts are sometimes inconvenient, but they are really important. And here are 3 facts about the last time we had this approach to Europe. During that 4 years, the number of American troops in Europe increased. During that 4 years, the amount of American investment in infrastructure, military supporting infrastructure in Europe increased. And during that time, the number of large force employment exercises, Trident Juncture to point to one, increased. So while we had a lot of really tough talk and some pretty tough wrangling going on, what actually happened, factually happened in Europe, is our troop numbers increased, our investments increased, and our number of big, large force employment exercises increased. So yes, there were some really turbulent times, and yes, we had some policies that were a bit abrasive, but in the end, America remained a strong ally in the alliance. I'm here to tell you that that's what I expect this time.
I think the Clinton memo on the pivot to the Pacific came before Trump, and indeed whilst you were SACEUR. So this is not a new direction of travel in terms of US focus on the Pacific water.
And may I just say that NATO had an intense interest in the Pacific as well. I like to tell the story that it was the 4th day I was on the job as the SACEUR, and a package came in and they felt like they needed to explain it. And it was me not approving, because the nations can individually do what they want, but me accepting that a big contingent of NATO Navy was going to the Pacific for the Rim of the Pacific exercise called RIMPAC, the largest Pacific exercise, and it was then carried out every 2 years. And I asked for the history, and the history was that NATO had long been sending large flotillas to participate. NATO, the EU, Europe, has always been interested in maintaining the free flow of goods and trade in the Pacific. So America sort of made a more pronounced out there public announcement, but in fact, NATO had been showing a lot of interest in the Pacific for a long time.
Well, I mean, I wanted to ask you later in our conversation about the indivisibility of the Euro-Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific, but since we're onto it, let's do that now. I think people too often forget that the US maintained a formidable Pacific fleet and air forces in Alaska and along the Pacific coast, and US Army and Marine presence in the Pacific throughout the Cold War, because even in that competition with Russia, it was expected that it would spill over into the Pacific theater. And my sense...
May I add one dynamic that you didn't mention? I mean, the naval and the air forces that were maintained in the Pacific were very much about the free flow of goods and trade. The Army forces that were in the Pacific back then were really focused on North Korea. Now, we have begun to shift that focus a little bit towards China, but the Army's presence is really about defending Korea. And who knows, if China was to go after Taiwan, would they not take their surrogate in North Korea and send them south to complicate matters? But we all know and understand, and this is not a slam on any of our services, I had 5 major joint engagements in my life, and I commanded joint troops. So I think joint, but we all kind of understand that the fight in the Pacific, if it's against China, is going to largely be an air and naval fight, unless either Russia or China takes the opportunity to kick off the peninsula, and then the U.S. Army is going to be decisively engaged there.
Well, I would imagine that when you were SACEUR, you had a very strong relationship with the Indo-PACOM commander at the time as well. But it just seems to me that with the relationship between Russia and China having developed in the way that it has, and Russia now effectively being a client of China, and then all the things around an opening up of the Northern Sea route, that those two theatres are even less divisible now than they might have been 15, 20 years ago. And I'm convinced that if a competition between China and the US kicks off in the Pacific, Russia will be used as an off-axis challenge to the US in the Atlantic, and therefore SACEUR has a role in the China competition, whether NATO likes it or not.
So I hate to keep sort of adding, never correcting, but adding to your thought.
Correct away. You're the 4-star general.
As the SACEUR back then, not only did I have this relationship with the Indo-Pacific, but I had a huge relationship with CENTCOM, because the border of Turkey was involved in a war. I mean, it was spilling over into Turkey. We had if you remember the Southern Fence operation, where we had NATO, not U.S., but NATO patriots on the Turkish border, and later to be the SecDef, my good friend Lloyd Austin, who was my compatriot commander there, he and I shared intelligence assets. We shared intelligence. We actually shared forces sometimes. So to your point, the indivisibility of our world, bigger than just Europe and PACOM, is incredible. Even today, we see EUCOM involved in support to what's going on in Iran and in the Middle East. And so the idea that we would be able to selectively say, we're going to fight this one now, you guys take it easy, that really never did exist. It certainly does not exist now. I believe, as you surmise, the interconnectivity of this is quite out there. I will tell you this, and it may dip into the rest of your program, but Mr. Putin knows without a shadow of a doubt right now he cannot defeat NATO, because his military is decimated. His army is decimated. And they are not going to go charging into NATO territory to expect to win. So I see Mr. Putin in a world conflagration along the lines of what you described, possibly as a secondary player in something that China would kick off, or Russia would kick off vis-a-vis North Korea.
And yet, whilst we're agreed on the indivisibility of the theatres, and I take your point entirely that CENTCOM is no less connected. It feels like the DoD is being forced into a decision around the rebalancing of US forces, and the narrative in NATO is the Europeans need to look after Europe.